consumption number. In addition to the news that the Trump administration is preparing the much discussed for many months, is preparing nearly $1 trillion infrastructure proposal as part of its push to get America growing again, as it were. In addition to that,
we still have, 21 million people unemployed?
I
think it's
21 million people that are collecting unemployment insurance. Yes. I mean, there's still huge numbers. There's a long way to go here.
Yeah.
Also the question about slashing legal immigration when you may need foreign workers if you want to jumpstart the recovery. Let's tackle all of that with our friend Steve Moore, Wall Street Journal columnist and economist, author of Trumponomics. Steve, you said on this show previously, stop spending. President Trump doesn't want to.
Yeah, no, that's one of my big concerns right now, guys. It's that we've already spent $2.5 trillion. That's trillion with the T, folks. $2.5 trillion on coronavirus relief, and now Pelosi wants to spend $3 trillion more. It sounds like what Trump was saying yesterday, at least the White House, was $1 trillion more. We had a big press conference yesterday with major conservative leaders around the country, including people like Jim DeMint and Adam Benn from Freedom Works and so on, saying stop the spending. We don't need to do new spending, because if we did anything like what President Trump or Pelosi is talking about, we would, for the first time in American history, have government spending at all levels more than 50% of our GDP, which would mean that our government sector would be larger than the entire output of every private business and private worker in America. I don't think, Dan and Amy, that Bernie Sanders, in his wildest dreams, would have ever thought that would happen in America. So we have to stop the spending. I do favor a payroll tax suspension for the rest of the year to get some of those 21 million people who are on unemployment insurance off unemployment insurance back into jobs. That would be a real stimulus. And let me say one other thing, if I may, because you brought it up, Dan. This idea of shutting off legal immigration now is just crazy to me. Crazy. It will just damage the economy. We have what we call H-1B visa holders, who are people who come in high tech. They're what Larry Kudlow calls the brainiacs, the smart people who come in and work in our in Silicon Valley and in our companies around the country that are adding value, adding employment to the United States. We need farm workers. We need seasoned employees who can come in and work in a lot of the the recreational facilities around the country. So I just don't understand the logic. I'm with Trump on sealing the border and making sure that people are healthy when they come in and making sure illegal immigrants aren't coming in. But we do need legal immigration for sure.
And as you point out, H-1B, the high tech, but also H-2B, the seasonal workers, and the Wall Street Journal opined on this. Just quoting one business owner who runs one of the larger crab processors on the East Coast. Without workers, we're looking at closure. Well, business closure is the last thing we need right now, especially if it can be avoided.
By the way, you guys, as you know, I live on the East Coast, so we go to the shore all the time, and we go to the Delaware beaches and sometimes the
You don't strike me as a
beaches.
beach guy, by the way, but okay.
Yeah, I'm a beach guy. I know you guys go across the street to Lake Michigan, but my point is that do you know where these, for the last 20 years, where all these seasonal beach workers, what part of the world they come from?
All over. I mean, the ones.
Well, one area in particular.
Where?
Eastern Europe. They're coming from Czechoslovakia. They come from Poland. They come from Hungary. It's just amazing how that region of the world is set. And these are great workers. They're amazing people. They're the people who work at the restaurants and the people who work at the hotels. They come to America because they want a chance to succeed, and some of them lived under communism, so they know what free markets are all about. We need more people like that, by the way. Whenever I give my talks at college campuses and so on about the obvious benefits of free markets over socialism, which, the American-born kids don't buy that. the kids who understand it are the ones who came from foreign countries who don't have freedom. And they're like, why are so many of my fellow students who were born here, why are they so enamored with socialism and free healthcare and free this and that when it doesn't work in the countries I came to the United States for freedom, and now these idiot, Americans want to move more towards socialism.
Well, Stephen, I went to the Badlands and one of the largest resorts. It's run by H-2B visa holders, and they were lovely people. They're from all over. And I said, "What?" And I said to the owner, "I said, why don't you hire, the locals?" And he said, "They don't want to work here, and a lot of them work their family farms. So I can't get people to South Dakota to work. So I need this in order to keep my business running."
I mean, that's the same around the country. Amy, you're exactly right. And so, and these are great workers, and they work hard. They keep the business open. Dan, you said it very well. At a time when we need to have businesses reopen, now we've got a lot of businesses today they can't reopen because they can't get some of these immigrant workers they need, which is really going to be bad. And incidentally, I should say this. We have, as you guys just said, 21 million unemployed people. I think the number is higher than that because there's a lot of people who have just kind of dropped out because they're not counted as unemployed, but they are. So let's say it's closer to 25 million, which I think is a closer number. So we have roughly 25 million Americans. And you know what the biggest problem I'm hearing from employers around the country is today?
They make more unemployed.
Yeah, they can't get them to come back.
Right.
If you're running a construction company, if you're running a store, if you're running a factory, they can't get the worker. It's the most bizarre thing. 25 million unemployed people and help wanted signs everywhere because people won't go back. And by the way, Pelosi, your good friend, Dan, Nancy Pelosi, wants to extend that policy through the end of the year.
Right. No, I understand.
Who doesn't like free money?
So I mean, yeah. So the left, the left is crazy, and then and some of the policies being proposed by the Trump administration are just a little bit less. It's a sort of a slower walk, including on Monday. The market again sort of turned around what looked to be a bad day based on the futures coming into Monday, but turned it around on the news that the Fed was going to start buying up corporate debt. The Fed has the liquidity now to buy up all the corporate debt in America. Would that be a good thing, Steve? Because that's what Jay Powell and the president seem to think.
Well, I'm not worried about inflation right now. We're hearing a lot of comments say, inflation's around the corner. There's zero signs of inflation in the economy. In fact, the 10-year Treasury bond's gone up a little bit, but it's still 1.5%. So there's no perception anywhere in the markets, globally or domestically here in the United States, that we're going to see inflation here. I do think that the Fed has mainly done the right thing in terms of providing dollar liquidity, because whenever you have an international crisis like we have with coronavirus, the first thing people do is they buy two things. They buy gold and they buy dollars. So there's been a rush on this, but it has to come to an end. We can't keep doing this. We're borrowing and borrowing and borrowing and borrowing and printing money. So it does concern me, Dan, and I think for the last 3 months, I think it's been appropriate to get us through this. But stop already.
Is the Trump White House, are they still contemplating the idea of another round of checks to be distributed?
Yes,
they are.
One of the proposals on the table is $1,000 for everyone. And why do that? Why not? I mean, we've got. I don't know if you guys know Casey Mulligan. He's a great
University of Chicago.
Right, he's a fantastic guy. He's doing a study for us right now on what would be the impact of suspending the payroll tax between July 1st and the end of the year. If you do that, he estimates it would create 4 million jobs.
But you can't. But the problem is you can't get through the House, right?
But let's just. Well, how is Pelosi? I would just say to Nancy Pelosi or Donald Trump, I've got an idea that will give every single worker in America, including minimum wage workers, a 7.5% increase in their paycheck. Why not do that? Instead, she wants to give more money to people who are unemployed. My point is, let's help the people that are working and create jobs, not the people who are not working and the people who are staying at home and watching TV. So I'm all for it, and it helps small businesses. But you're right, Pelosi doesn't want to do that because I'm going to say something controversial now, okay? I mean, so people.
All right, thanks for the disclaimer. Yeah, we'll all rush to our safe spaces. Go ahead.
So I hope you're sitting down.
Mm-hmm.
I have come to the conclusion, I did not believe this a month or two ago, but I believe it today, that what is going on in America on the left and in the Democratic Party is Operation Chaos. They are doing everything they possibly can to try to subvert any kind of recovery, anything that will help the country or anything that will help, God forbid, Donald Trump, they are against. And it's maybe you can think I'm just being paranoid here, folks, but think about this. First, they said, oh, Trump's election was illegitimate. And then we had a year and a half on the Russian probe. And once we finally figured out that was just a joke, then they moved. Then we have coronavirus. Then as soon as coronavirus, finally we're getting the economy going up again. We start to have riots in the streets. There is something going on here, folks. Maybe I'm being paranoid.
Well,
and now we're back to coronavirus and states that have reopened earlier.
Exactly.
The number of cases are increasing. Well, the number of testing's increasing too.
Yeah, and by the way, thank you for bringing that up, Amy, because it's a joke. It's not true. It is simply not true. In fact, death rates continue to fall. And they found like 3 or 4 cities in the entire United States where you had a spike up, and there was headlines around the country. Oh my God, it's spiking again, it's back.
That argument needs to be made. That litany that you just went down needs to be stated and restated. But then we get back to assuming that to be true. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, then what do you do? The president still has to make decisions, and so. If you can't move a payroll tax reduction or holiday, if you can't move an infrastructure bill, or maybe you shouldn't, maybe you and Kudlow and Laffer need to bracket him and tell him to take his checkbook away, then what do you do other than continue to use your bully pulpit to encourage states to reopen and businesses to reenter the commercial arena?
Well, first of all, Trump does have one of the most powerful weapons of the president and powers of the president is the bully pulpit. And Trump has not performed well in the last 2 or 3 months. He's just not done. And I love the guy. I mean, I think it would be a total catastrophe of our country if he did not win re-election. Mm-hmm. But he is, I think his reaction to the protests and riots, and I think his reaction to coronavirus has been poor, frankly. And his numbers stink right now, Dan. I was just looking at the polling. He's down by 11 points to Joe Biden, for goodness sakes. So he's got some rebuilding of his own, image with the voters. But I think you do that he's got to give a national address this week or next week on the state of the nation, what's going on, show some signs of racial reconciliation, but also talk about the fact that we're going to find these people who burned up these immigrant businesses and people who stole and the thieves and the criminals. We can't allow that to go unpunished. We have to find those people. And then he has to talk about, here is my policies to rebuild the economy. I want to give every worker in America a 7.5% pay raise in their paycheck starting July 1st. Nancy Pelosi, who says she cares about working class Americans, doesn't want to do it. What Reagan did so effectively, remember Tip O'Neill? Tip O'Neill, Dan?
Yeah.
Whenever he got into the budget, he went above his head. He went straight to the people and said, "This is what we want to do." And if Trump would do that, I think he would be seen as heroic. I mean, my goodness, I'm just looking at the statistics. Do you guys know what demographic group from 2017 through the beginning of 2020 had the fastest rate of economic advance over that period?
Black Americans.
By a mile. Right. So why isn't he saying that? He should say, look, there was more economic advance in 3 years under Donald Trump for Black Americans. I'm proud of this because we wanted minorities and low-income people to do best. So they had more economic advance in 3 years under Trump than under 8 years under Obama.
I hear you, and you're right. You got to make the arguments. Don't expect your opponents to make them for you. That's for sure. Stephen Moore, economist, journal columnist, and author of Trumponomics. Steve, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Have a great week, guys. Thanks for having me. See ya.
You too. Always a pleasure. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Hear about the big stories of the day, then talk about them right here on Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
I've always wanted to learn another language, but every time I try, it never sticks. So I decided to give Babbel a try, and I really like the teaching method of the app. I started with the beginner lesson on Babbel.